We're headed for a showdown at historic Hinchliffe Stadium in Paterson, New Jersey, as Fort Wayne FC travels this week to take on the New York Cosmos. Both teams still searching for that elusive first win of the season. Welcome to the show where we take a look not only at the matchups on the field, but the supporters to form the heartbeat of these clubs. This is Crests and Colors. Welcome back to another episode of Crests and Colors, the show as we talk about each and every week. We collaborate with other creators, other independent media folks from around USL League One. My name is Brian Biedenbach, host of Fort Wayne Footy, here with two co-hosts tonight from New York Cosmos, the Cosmos Country podcast. Jerry and Jimmy, welcome to Crests and Colors. Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
First of all, Brian, thanks for having us on. And after that intro, I think I might move to Fort Wayne. But that was awesome. Thanks for having us on. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Jerry Calla. I am one of the hosts of Cosmos Country. Recently, new adventure for us. We're about 12 episodes in, and I'll swing it over to my partner, Jimmy Whalen.
Jimmy, we're tag teaming in tonight, Brian. So. My name's Jim Whalen. I'm the co-host of Cosmos Country. Jerry and I had another podcast, and I guess probably about last February we heard about New Jersey Pro Soccer coming, and Jerry reached out to me. I do like a lot of the background stuff to get a gentleman named Eric Stover on. So we had him on the show. Very productive conversation. The Cosmos name was announced in June. Jerry was at that press conference, and then probably somewhere around January, we got our heads together and we launched Cosmos Country. And I think we were talking a little bit off camera, Brian. I can't believe just a lot of the supporter groups I know from these different, and we had Portland Hearts of Pine. Their first match, I think they came down in force. About 400 or 500 people. Jerry was at the game. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it, but it was nice to see kind of the support, and like those guys said, we'll be friends, but that 90 minutes on the pitch, we won't be. So, but Jerry and I are friends. We work together. I don't know. The show's giving us a little strain on our relationship. So you might have a spinoff coming soon. But we'll see how contract negotiates.
I might hook up with Brian after tonight's show. So
yeah, think so.
Hey, come on. You're welcome here. So it's been fun, man. We talked again a little bit off camera about the support and just the community around these teams in USL League One, the independent media folks like yourselves and myself, just supporting one another, trying to build up the game in our local communities. And that's what this show is all about. And so I've been really encouraged by the conversations we've had with the folks that have already been on. And so far tonight, this has been a lot of fun. I look forward to the conversation. So let's jump right in. We both, Fort Wayne FC and New York Cosmos, are entering USL League One this year as expansion teams. Now, the biggest difference most people know is Fort Wayne FC is not brand new. It's been around for 5 years in USL League Two, playing in lower competition. New York Cosmos has been around again and again. This is the third iteration, I believe, of New York Cosmos coming back.
Third time.
History with New York Cosmos. So it's a new club, but it's not a new club. Talk a little bit about, Jerry, I know you've got some history with the club growing up, right?
That's correct. So does Jimmy. So Jimmy and I are relatively.
Well, I just say, if this is once in a lifetime, this is the book about the first. We've been breaking it down as Cosmos 1.0, Cosmos 2.0, and now Cosmos 3.0. But that book was about that time in the 70s. But I don't want to steal Jerry's thunder, but Jerry knows more about.
They did it. That book is really, really, really delves into from day one, unfortunately, to the last day of 1.0. They did a nice documentary. With that, Shep Messing, who's legendary with the club, was a goalkeeper 2 different times. He was at the home opener against the Portland Hearts of Pine. But so Jimmy and I are relatively the same age. we kind of caught the Cosmos, if you will, at the tail end. They came on the scene in 1971. They started in Hofstra. And then when they were able to secure, which was a fabulous story, Pele, then they went to Yankee Stadium, and then they eventually went over to Giant Stadium, which is really now where MetLife Stadium is. And the ironic thing was in 1977, when they really peaked, if you will, for that summer, if you will, they were outdrawing the Mets and the Yankees combined.
Wow.
It's crazy. The old Giant Stadium was about, I believe, 78,000 ish. And, the Mets were struggling. The Yankees were having a good year. But, for many, many matches, they actually outdrew both New York baseball teams. Unfortunately, they really came to a crashing halt. Pele retired. They had a very nice tribute match at Giant Stadium. He played one half for Santos, his old club team, and then one half for the Cosmos. And then even after that, they had some good years, soccer bowl appearances. And then 84, it really came to a screeching halt. They tried to hang around it for a little bit as an indoor team in the old MISL league, Major Indoor Soccer League. And that kind of faltered. And then they went away. MLS, as you know, came on the scene in 96. That was part of the deal for us hosting the 94 World Cup. And then the Cosmos came back in 2013. And in 2013, that kind of went to 2020. And again, 2013, they came in and they actually won Soccer Bowl the first year in the old, at the time, which was it's the now defunct, the second iteration, if you will, of the NASL.
Okay, I was going to ask, yeah.
Yes. So and then they kind of toiled around in various leagues. 2020, they closed up shop, if you will. And then we had on, like Jimmy mentioned, Eric Stover, who is currently the CEO of the Cosmos. He was involved in the Cosmos from 2013 as well. Very instrumental. He used to work for the Red Bulls. He was the president of operations for the Red Bulls. He was very instrumental in building their soccer-specific stadium down in Harrison. And Eric came on. We had a great conversation. At the time, he was like, hey, I'm going to try to talk to you about a project I'm working on, which was the restoration of Hinchliffe Stadium in Paterson, New Jersey. Very historic. He was very instrumental in helping that get restored. That has landmark status. And at the same time, when we had him on the program, like Jimmy mentioned earlier, the project was North Jersey Pro. And all he would say at the time was, we're going to have a professional team, probably going to be in the USL, limited details. We had a great chat. A good portion of the chat was revisiting the previous Cosmos iteration and talking about the work that he was doing with the city of Paterson and the restoration program. And then one day, I'll never forget this. It was like, bang, very little fanfare. Hey, guess who's back? And, now we're back for the third time. The beauty of it is, and Jimmy and I talk about this all the time, we're on a show with you. You're gracious enough to have us on. And I think if you look, we kind of talked about this earlier, there's a lot of naysayers. There's a lot of people, particularly in our area, that don't want to see the club do well.
Yeah, they're playing in New Jersey. Why don't you just call them the Cosmos?
Yeah, there's just a lot of
dead and buried. Why don't you you're reliving Pele? So I do a lot of social media accounts, and of course we get a lot of fodder sent our way. But anyway, not to cut you off, Jerry. So you're on.
Yeah,
and
that's the thing. Like our market, it's very unique. Our market, because our market, we already have 2 MLS clubs. We have 3 hockey teams, 2 basketball teams, 2 football NFL teams. Then you have Rutgers football that's getting popular, pretty much. Then you have a lot of college basketball. So our market, we really have a lot going on. And yet I think, what we're going to talk about tonight, we can talk about rosters and we can talk about a lot of different things. But for the Cosmos to return to USL, day 1, 2 p.m. kickoff on a not so good day with weather, and to draw 4,100 on
Wow.
day one in this market, I think is a major story.
Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of underestimated when you look at what they're trying to do this time compared to chapter 1 or chapter 2, if you will, like we call it here, is that number one, right off the bat, the USL, the structure of the USL is much, much, much more stable. You have a more successful league. The original NASL 1971 to 84, it was going too quick,
Mhm.
and it just
And
basically
they
burnt itself
they
out.
outpaced themselves. They're paying
Outpaced
too much,
themselves.
and a lot of these markets couldn't. But one thing about that, I would say a lot of these markets, the seed was planted then. You look at a Kansas City, you look at
Mhm.
like a
Mhm.
Houston, you look at some of
Yeah.
Tampa Bay. A lot of the seeds were planted back then, and actually, like going back once in a lifetime, a lot of
Mhm.
is in the book. But I think like Steve Roth, who was the CEO of Warner Brothers Communications, he saw that 1966 World Cup and he wanted in. He was a big soccer fan and basically really overspent. Everybody else couldn't keep up. But I mean, it was just but like
And
that.
also, too, in conjunction with the spending, the original version, the league had a lot of problems getting it on TV.
Yeah.
There was
Yeah.
a thing that's really underestimated was a lot of their kickoff times were like middle of the afternoon on like a Sunday.
Right.
So, that was another thing. And then again, which is mind boggling to think about this in 2026. But back then, when the games were on TV, in the middle of a match, they would take a commercial break.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just, and then the
And-
second version of the Cosmos being in that new NASL, that just, it just petered out very quickly,
Yeah.
But what I think too is, and I'll swing it back to you. I don't want to hog up all the airtime here. Is the first iteration you have the history with legendary players, but the second iteration I think was important for the club in our area because they faced the Red Bulls twice in the Open Cup. They
Okay.
beat them once in Hofstra. They lost once at Red Bull Arena. They beat New York City twice in the Open Cup, one at Hofstra, one at actually Fordham University. So even though the NASL at that time wasn't really expanding and really had no vision, the Cosmos did make their mark in the Open Cup, and that was exciting. And I think they wrote a book about the first version, the second version. There is a lot of history there for the club. And I'll never forget, like, there was some big moments besides the Open Cup wins, and winning Soccer Bowl, having Marco Senna. I remember, going in the middle of the day to a press conference when they had Raul, legendary Raul. They were able to lure him here. And, they actually had the press conference and they had a whole little thing. I brought my son. I have a great picture with him and Raul. He was little. And of all places, it was in a Buffalo Wild Wings in Manhattan. So,
There you go.
There is, so both chapters, I think, for different reasons, have good history. And now the club announced they were coming back. Jimmy and I put our heads together. We announced that we're having a podcast, and boy, the support has been nothing short of magnificent.
It's been
from the club,
coming.
fellow fans, supporters. Jimmy will tell you the amount of people that contact us.
That's awesome.
I mean, like I said, we had Cosmos fans in UK. Reach out to me. So I think that's just the history of it.
Yeah.
I think we had a 50-year head start than most of the franchises.
For sure.
But I think one thing good about this time, which will be different, I think the USL is a stable league, and also I think in the first two, Cosmos 1.0 and Cosmos 2.0. They were kind of nomads. Even when they were playing in Giant Stadium, it was kind of like a football stadium. But Yankee Stadium was being done over. They had the Yankee, Mets, Giants, and Jets all playing at Shea Stadium, and so there's really nowhere to play. So I think when Hinchliffe, they have a place they can call their home. So I think that's big.
Yeah, I think that's important. That's something that we have in common, I think, between our clubs is we've got a new stadium being built. You've got a historic stadium.
I saw that. Yes, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so I do think that having a place that you don't have to work around another club, you don't have to work around any other scheduling because it's yours, makes a big difference. So I want to go back, and I don't want to spend a lot of time here, but the fact that you've talked about the USL being a stable organization, a stable league is an interesting comment in the context right now of USL Championship and the USL Players Association not protesting because they, the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement, is still not signed. You've got USL 1 clubs that, there's 17 teams in the league right now, and there are supposed to be 21 in the league this year. A couple went out before the season, made announcements that they were pushing pause. And then you've got South Georgia Tormenta that, pulled out 13 days before kickoff. So absolutely, there's a lot more happening. I think there's structure to be built. I just thought it was kind of it hit me when you said it's a really stable organization, stable league. And I think there's a lot to it. They're putting a lot of structure to it as they head towards promotion relegation at some point in the future and build that Division I league.
Well, I think, and our first podcast, we actually had Connor Tobin on the USLPA, and we spoke about this very issue. But I mean, listen, I think all that stuff will get worked out. I think,
I agree.
It's stable in the fact that I think that if you look at some of the attendance records that some of the clubs are having, and I think that the USL is kind of figuring out certain markets. I know there's been some controversy as far as like, oh, they're only taking the franchise fee, they're over expanding everything else.
Yeah.
I think that's what happened with the North American Soccer League. But I think that this will all get figured out. But I mean, it's we're in a weird time with amateurism, and like you talk about college basketball or college athletics, NIL, and everything else. I think that'll all get worked out. And I think that the USLPA is a relatively young union compared. I know they had help with the MLSPA, but I think that's all going to get worked out. But I think that, listen, the country was born on protest, so I think that's going to happen.
Right.
But I think that, I think the bottom line is that you don't have, I don't think, greedy owners that are looking, but I think that you have a lot of interest and a lot of owners that want to bring grassroots soccer to areas that are not that don't have a professional franchise that could build around a community. I mean, that's what I see at USL. I mean, nothing's really stable. If you look at, United States government, we're lobbing bombs in Iran. So what's stable in the world anymore? So I don't know, Jerry, you want to chime in on this or just?
Yeah, I mean, Brian, I think I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of the negativity that we get, it's like, oh, how is the USL going to shift to a promotion relegation system when, the teams folded, almost 10 minutes before kickoff. But, here's the reality. You look at any league, and I look at the MLS, right? And MLS comes in. They had one of the original franchises was the Tampa Bay Mutiny. They went away. Right. And, you look at, if you would have told me as a kid, Major League Baseball, that the Montreal Expos would have been disbanded, contract, whatever you want to, whatever term you want to use. So I think, what you see in the stability is the growth is there. The potential for the growth is there. What I think really, and I'm going to say this in all honesty, when starting this podcast, you have some really, really, really solid fan bases in non-traditional sports areas or non-traditional sports areas of the country. And I think that's imperative, and again, what I think is cool about this is you look at our situation. We have, you go to Hinchliffe and you go to the Cosmos team shop, right? Team store. And there's 4 sweatshirts, 4 t-shirts, and they all have 1971 on it.
Yeah.
That's the first year, right? We're very proud of that history. A lot of clubs don't have that. So now you take the Cosmos and the league. What I like, it seems the USL is everybody's pulling for the most part in the same direction, right? Because Fort Wayne, Hearts of Pine, right? Whoever, right? The Cosmos do well, and now you put the Cosmos in a really big media market doing well, and now you attach, if you will, for a lack of a better term, all these areas that are non-traditional pro sports. The future definitely looks bright. Are you going to take a few steps, sideways, if you will, a few steps back? I think in any organization, you're going to take a few steps back. And I agree with both of you. I think the labor dispute will have a way of working itself out.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, South Georgia Tormenta, for example, is from my understanding, the smallest sports market in the entire United States. And so the fact that they've had a team, it's been successful. They were going into their 10th year. To your point, there is growth in the league. And I think some of those teams are going to fall off naturally that can't keep up with the size of the market and whatnot as the rest of the league. So it's unfortunate. There's fatalities in the midst of that,
Yep.
but it is part of the growth process for sure.
Correct.
So
Yeah, but if you look at MLS, you have Nashville, and most of the time, Southern states soccer is not really a sport that they would see. But I think if you look at a place like Nashville, there is growth, and
Yeah.
there is transplants.
Yeah.
You look at a place like Atlanta. Atlanta in 1980 had 800,000 people. Now I think it's 10 million. So there is growth in certain markets. It's just like I look at, like we had this mentioned on this last podcast. Look at a place like Lexington, Kentucky.
Right.
They're drawing very well.
Yep.
So who would have thought Lexington? You think Lexington, Kentucky, you're thinking about Kentucky basketball. So I mean, but
Yeah.
it's just finding the right market. And then look at the Tampa Bay Devil Rays. They're looking to move. So I mean, it's just like you're gonna get these markets where sometimes the major sport there's no attraction there. However, Tampa Bay is doing well on the soccer side.
Yeah, I think soccer is a sport that's growing enough that there's going to be a lot of cities and a lot of towns that say we're going to try our hand at this. We've got a good following in our youth academies. We're going to give it a shot, and may or may not survive. And so Fort Wayne may or may not be in that category. I think we're a small city, 250,000 people, about 400,000, close to 500,000 in our metro area, if you expand that out. So a small city, not huge, building the biggest stadium in USL League One, which is, it's interesting to me to see how this is going to go and how this grows. So fun conversation there. Let's get into some conversation about our teams, our clubs.
Sure.
We've got a game coming up on Saturday. Now you guys have a game tomorrow, I believe, right? Yeah. So you could potentially get that first win even tomorrow before Fort Wayne comes to town. Who you're facing tomorrow? I can't remember who you got.
Greenville
Triumph.
That's right. And Greenville Triumph was just upset in the U.S. Open Cup, so they may be coming in a little frustrated facing you guys.
Oh, then again, when we were in Spokane, that was their third game in 6 days, and that really didn't turn out so well. It was 3-0 at the half, but again, our roster, I think in as we head into game, we talked about this when we recapped our last match.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I think, for a team with so many young players, and then you have so many young players. This is their first pro contract, so they're seeing their first pro minutes. Then you sprinkle in the fact that we have some good young USL veterans, to say the least. And this is a big week to see how they respond. 0-2, they lost on Sunday on the road. Now they come Wednesday back on the road, and then they have to play on Saturday, the third game in 7 days. So our roster, I don't think Coach Cordy's set really on, what we want to see in our first 11 yet. Again, I'm going to say this. People are going to probably mock me for saying this. We're still, and I think I speak for most fans, the story for us right now is we're back. And I think, and I don't want to make this like, oh, we're taking away from what's going on the field.
Sure.
But for us, when 2020 happened, when they folded, it was, right after COVID and everything else. I thought, man, all right, it came once, it came twice. It's not coming a third time. And just for us to be back, like we're still, most of the fans, the supporters that I talk to, that me and Jimmy speak with and text with, we're still in that honeymoon stage that, hey, listen, we're back. But, as far as on the field, somebody that's very, very popular in our fan base is Sebastian Guinzotti. Seba came on the scene in 2013, so he was around for Chapter 2. I believe he's 34 years old. If you watch him play, you wouldn't know that. Very, very dedicated to the craft, takes care of himself. The younger players have really gravitated to him. So, again, that's what's special. Here we are. We're back again, and now we have a player from the second part of our history.
And I think that was the first. I think that was the first player they signed too. So
it was right. So I remember there was a story that he was announced right before his previous club had announced that they had released him.
Yes, that's always the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But again, it's funny because if you think about it, right, like around here, we have him tied to us and us only, but he
right.
had a tremendous career with the Rowdies.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did great things in Tampa Bay. So
yeah. So it sounds like the nostalgia is carrying you guys right now, at least through this first
it's carrying us.
couple first games. How long do you feel like that will continue to carry you? Like if the wins don't come or the points don't come, and we're asking ourselves the same thing, we just don't have the history here in Fort Wayne.
Right.
Like, how long will that honeymoon phase last for you guys before it's like, all right, we want to see some wins?
I think that'll get us. I really think, and this may be sounding a little naive. I think, listen, as we know, right, history is great, but in the reality of it is, it gets you so far, right? I would like to say I think it gets you most of through the first year in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
Right? New York, New Jersey, the market, we don't really take well to the rebuild. Unfortunately, you look at any team, it's a lot to ask. In this area, I always say we're really in a rush to go nowhere. And, that's just the mentality of the area. But I think this is a specific situation in where you have a lot of fans. So, for example, we had our good friend James on. James is one of the leaders of the 5 Points. Our support, that's basically the larger group of what all the supporters groups fall under. We have multiple supporters groups on both sides of the river. One thing that he said, and this really resonated with me, he said, yeah, the club is back. The club is we're moving forward with the club. He's like, let's not forget. He goes, for us, meaning the supporters groups, this is a rebuilding year for us because now 2020, 6 years ago, people have gotten married, life has got in the way, people have moved on. So again, like it's cool. Like I know a lot of them from the last iteration, but they're looking to get, number one, to get younger. And as we all know, that's a process.
Absolutely.
And that's a process. And I think so far, we had the one home match. Our supporters groups are very, like most, community engaged. They're out there on social media, watch parties for the road games, that sort of thing. I thought they did a really, really, really nice job, in the first match, with the added pressure of the Hearts of Pine having 400 plus people just to the right of them, up a level. So, that's how we're still. I think, speaking for the supporters groups and the general fan base, I think the history is going to take us through year one. Maybe that's me being naive or hopeful. And I think, to be fair, that's all it should take you. Now we want to see how we go the rest of the year. And then more importantly, how we go to year two, because guess what? We want to be in the top flight in the USL, and we want to stay there once they initiate the pro realm.
Right. As you get into Hinchliffe Stadium, how many fans does that hold?
Around 8,000.
8,000. Okay. So 8,000. You got room to grow, right? You had
correct
4,100 on a bad night, home opener. You had some weather and stuff. So yeah, plenty of room to grow. Exciting there. And I know as Pro Rel is continuing to be talked about, and you look at moving on, I know Fort Wayne ownership has ambition to move forward. They built a 9,200 seat stadium, not for USL.
That's awesome.
1. I think they built it for moving forward.
Awesome.
And so you guys have that space. And I imagine you have not just the nostalgia and the history, but you got an ownership group that wants to expand and continue to grow and has ambition to get there. So love that. It'll be fun to watch how these two teams continue to grow over the years. Now, Fort Wayne has a pretty young team this year. I think it may be the youngest or second youngest in the entire league. I think at one point we were like at 23 and a half years old is our average age. And we have a couple 31, 33, 34-year-olds on the team, which means we've got some 17, 18, 19-year-olds as well that temper that. You guys look to be, as I scan your roster, you mentioned Seba as a 34, 35-year-old. I can't remember what you said there. But it looks that you have a young roster as well. And so I think the similarity between our teams is coaches are still trying guys out. They've had some success at previous levels, and they're seeing what they have in these first couple matches to put together a full 11, right? I know you said coach is still feeling that out a little bit, but from what you've seen in the first couple matches, right? What formations are you guys playing? Who are the exciting players to watch? And what adjustments do you think they continue to make moving forward?
Sure. So we've come out in the two matches in a 4-2-3-1. One of our more exciting players, again, who has USL experience, who was one of the better guests we've had on our podcast is Ajmir Spengler. Very, very creative, good attacking player. He was a great interview. He's off to a pretty good start. One of the surprises, switching to the other side, if you will, we were kind of expecting our goalkeeper to be Derek Chan. Derek came from the Red Bull system. He was on Red Bull 2. The first two matches, Tristan Stefani started. He's 23. I think, two tough results. I think he's done a good job. Christian Coffey as a very, very exciting, dynamic player out wide. Local product, Nick Zalanka. He started the first two matches. He's actually from close to me. Very, very good attacking player. Guinzotti's as a striker. And the one thing that I'll say that's been probably a weaker part of the club and really a work in progress is our back line. So that's
they just signed Chavez last week, so he was on Toscana, and he started. But another player I thought we're interesting to see how he plays out. He got inserted in the second half out in Spokane is Julian Locker, who's about 17 years old. He's still in high school, from what I understand. We said we thought he graduated, but then we got blown up on social media saying no, he's still in high school. I guess he's doing online classes. But when he came in, there was definitely a different vibe. So Jerry and I, our last show, we did a recap. We were just wondering how Coach Cordy is going to use him. Is he going to start him, or is he going to bring him in as a spark off the bench? So we'll see.
Kid? Did I hear you say Locker's a local kid?
Yeah, so he's
a Jersey product, yes, but
okay.
He was in the New York City FC NYCFC system.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And you guys, as I look around your roster, it looks like you have a lot of local talent
yes.
in the New York, New Jersey area, which is kind of unique, I think, to the system here. So you've got some guys locally that you can cheer for. Maybe you've seen them play before in high school, college. Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
But I think Jersey's a rich soccer state. So I mean, just like if you look at, I think the what got me back into soccer, obviously the Cosmos, we talked about that, but in the 94 team, you had John Harks, you had Tony Miola, Jersey guys, you had Peter Vermees, you had Alexi Lalas, who played at Rutgers. So seeing these players and watching them in high school and play, like there's always been, and Kearney's a hotbed for soccer. So I think that you're always going to have Jersey talent there. So, but
it's funny, Brian, it's funny you mentioned that because, like for me, Nick Zalanka, we had him on the program, another great guest. He had he's one town over from me. I saw him play. He's actually he was in high school the same time as my daughter. He had an absolute monster of a career. He wound up going to the university. He played at the University of Kentucky as a grad student for a year.
Wow.
So to see somebody like that. So funny story. Day one, he's from Wallington, New Jersey. Wallington High School product. Game number one, conservatively, had to be 300 people from the Wallington area, in the stands.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing.
So you do have good stories with that. And one thing, when Eric Stover, who is the CEO of the Cosmos, when he took reins of this and this thing started moving forward, the next most important person, if you will, after him is Giuseppe Rossi, who his career is, needs no introduction. He's the head of soccer, the head of sport, and they have made it known from day one, we want to identify local talent and have a roster filled with local talent. So it's been nice to see that, that's actually coming to fruition. And with that, they sprinkled in what I'll call some, USL vets.
Yeah.
So you guys, when that stadium is going to be swinging over to you guys. Your stadium is being built now. When will that be up and?
That is the question of the day. It's still being built. First home match is scheduled May 2nd. And there are still, you drive past the stadium and there's a lot of spaces you can see straight through from one side to the other. And so it's a stadium that, ownership has said it's going to be done. They're working around the clock to do it. I drove by at 10 or 10:30 the other night to my son's indoor match, and the lights were still out and the workers were still working. So they're pushing as fast as they can to get this thing done. And I have no doubts that it will. We'll just see if it's, full on everything on opening day, or if there's still bits and pieces that are, finishing touches that are still going. But May 2nd is the day. Welcome Charlotte Independence to town for that first match. Yeah.
Now, how overall, like in your experience, how is the club? Because again, we talk about USL in the different dynamics compared to other leagues. Like, how is the club really embraced the community?
Yeah, it's been great. There's been a lot of you guys talked about how the club is coming to you guys and really working hand in hand with, interviewing employees and players and stuff. We have that same kind of relationship with the ownership group here in Fort Wayne. Mark Music has been great. He's the primary owner of the club. DeMarcus Beasley, a name that we all know,
sure. And he's from Fort Wayne, right?
He is from Fort Wayne. And so with a name like Beasley behind this, local kid, family is still in the area. His older brother played as well in Major League Soccer. And so, you can't go wrong with a name like that behind something like this. So as far as like supporters groups go, we have one group, Three Rivers Regiment. In USL2, it's been a small group. I think it's gaining traction. It's continuing to grow. And we'll just see how that plays out. There's been, I think the stadium is going to be huge for this town, and for local soccer fans. We've got two main clubs, like youth academies here in Fort Wayne. Again, a small city. We've got two good youth academies that compete on a national level, top to bottom, in their talent pool, their age groups. We've got another club north of us that we're pulling from. And so the soccer base is there. The fandom is there. It's the casual fans or the fans that are, fans of Comet Hockey or Fort Wayne Tin Caps, the baseball team here. Can we capture that audience and move them to being soccer fans? And so the big push right now is this stadium is going to be the largest stadium in Northeast Indiana of any sport in the area. It's going to have the largest scoreboard, second largest scoreboard in the state of Indiana.
Wow.
Next to Purdue, I believe it's Purdue University's football stadium. Now it's going to be ultra wide. It's not going to be tall, but it's going to be ultra wide.
Right.
And so I think the fan experience, if we can get people into that stadium, I think the fan experience there and the product that they're going to see on the field, despite not having a win yet, is going to be exciting. And I think that's what's going to capture local fans here in Fort Wayne. But the team has been all over the place. The club's been all over the place, working with fans and local organizations to just build relationship and build the fandom here.
And
now I'm sorry, Jimmy, the accessibility, like you're talking for you guys for the new stadium, transportation, I mean, would majority are driving?
Yeah, absolutely. Majority are driving. We have right now they're going to have to do something because where the stadium's located, it's right off the highway. Like it's just 50 yards off the highway. And so you drive by and you see this massive thing being built, and everybody asks, prior to knowing it was a soccer stadium, there's a lot of people, is that Top Golf? Is Top Golf going in? Like, that's great.
Right.
Like, but Top Golf and how close it is to the highway. And that's why people thought that. So it's very visible, very attractive, but there's one road that you can get in and out of from that stadium. And I think that there's, development planned down the road, but I think it's going to be hard in and out. So I think people will probably be finding ways to, like, there's no public transportation that runs there, the subway, or there's a bus that goes by probably, but most people will be driving in for it.
And the supporters groups, do they travel? I know, like I said, Hearts of Pines, I think that's a different level, but I mean, I know you're starting to, they're starting out, but do they Do they travel? I know you
So
traveled. You went down to Naples the first
yeah,
match.
I was one of like 6 people that traveled to Naples for that match.
Okay.
And my son and I were 2 of them. We had a local reporter from the Journal Gazette flew down with us, and then a couple families, I think. But
Nice.
I think, and that was a far travel. That was a big
Yeah.
distance, right? The Fort Wayne supporter group, the Three Rivers Regiment, has traveled to Lexington when in USL2 and Fort Wayne's played there. They've traveled to Cincinnati and Dayton, Ohio, and there were times that they outnumbered the home fans, which isn't saying a whole lot because a lot of these USL clubs don't get a lot of fans out there because they've got other bigger clubs in the area. But they, to outnumber anybody on their home field is pretty huge. So again, it's growing. They're very active in the community too, and so it's a group that is still, I think, trying to find itself. They've got some good leadership, and I think they're trying to find their way forward in a city that has never had, well, in a long time, hasn't had pro soccer, but definitely hasn't had pro soccer at this level.
And then as far as the roster itself, who are some of the players we should kind of keep an eye on that you?
Yeah, that's a great question. That I love talking about this. We have Fort Wayne, I mentioned earlier, is a young club, young roster, 23 and a half, I believe is the average age. So they've got a lot of their ambition as a club is to bring players in, give them their first professional contract, develop them, and then move them on. Like there's no ambition to keep players here for the long haul. We want to get good players, develop good players, and push them on, almost like a Borussia Dortmund in Germany, right? Like they want to get talented players and then sell them high. And I think Fort Wayne has that ambition. So we've got a lot of young talent. Some notable players on the squad. Jack Thomas, who was the NAIA Player of the Year last year out of Louisiana Shreveport, 20 goals and 14 assists in his senior season. So pretty phenomenal player out of the UK. He's not a tall guy, not a big guy, but he's an active player and has a way of finding the goal. We've got a duo out of Central Florida, Lillian Recole and Clarence Awudor, that played together. Clarence Awudor is an attacking mid. Lillian Recole's a striker. He's been the one that's gotten the start the first couple of games so far, got the first goal for Fort Wayne FC in their history. Those two between them have 20 goals and 19 assists in their last season at Central Florida. So we've got a lot of talent. Javier Armas in the middle has played in the Atlanta United system. He was on Atlanta United 2. Just had him on our show on Sunday night. Big stat, this guy, he's got an engine that doesn't quit. He played every minute of every match in the 2024 season for Atlanta United 2. Not a single time was subbed out. Started every match. Good player there. And so, yeah, there's a lot of talent across the board. We've got 4 returners from the USL2 days all along the back line, right? So in USL2, they won the Valley Division the last 3 seasons.
Yeah. And then typical Indiana fashion, they could probably also play basketball because they're like 6'8", 6'4".
Yeah, we got definitely got a lot of height on that back line. Tiago Diaz, Reed Sproat, Anthony Hernandez, and then goalkeeper Ari Briscoe, who's from your area actually, are returners, and there's no question why giving up like the 5th fewest amount of goals in all of USL2 with 144 teams. They had a solid back line, but as you're right, they added Juan Solis, who's 6'8", who, funny story, we had one of his teammates on the show, and we asked about Solis. Burns Shipman came out of Forward Madison as a new goalkeeper this year for Fort Wayne. We're talking to him about, you got a 6'8" guy in front of you. How you coming out to catch a ball? Like, do you just let him like, can you even see the ball coming? And so we just, we were talking to him about that. And he says, I didn't even know he was on our team. I walked into the gym. They were training at a local college. He said, I saw him across the gym. I thought he was a basketball player from that college. And then he came over and introduced himself and went, oh, you're my center back. So a lot of height there across that back line.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, and to another stat there is Tiago Diaz as a center back, 6'4", played his last college season at Bryant University. has played here for Indiana Tech here locally, who's a pretty solid NAIA national contender every year, is the 4th leading goal scorer in the history of Fort Wayne FC as a center back. So good in the air, good attacking high balls coming off corners there too. So yeah, a lot of good names to watch. Some I didn't even mention, but those are the guys that I'm looking forward to really produce on the offensive side of the ball this year.
Yeah. Well, I think our strength is a midfield. I mean, so we'll see how that clashes. You know,
do you envision a lot of fans traveling up to New Jersey on Saturday?
You know, I don't know that they will this time. I think there's a lot of fans here that want to travel, but the team's doing a good job of providing spaces for watch parties and things. And so for the time being, I think, you know, being from here in the middle of the country in the Midwest, people are pretty frugal.
I got you.
Looking
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Well,
So
frugal travels, you know, even though you don't have to go that far. But
right. So I hope and I anticipate people will begin to travel more as the club continues to build. I'm hopeful that I can get to a couple away stadiums every season moving forward, and hope to get out there and visit with you guys out in Paterson at some point. So.
Well, I mean, Paterson's had some challenges in the past. They're trying to change that. A lot of, if you like South American food, if you like chicken and rice, there's a couple places. I guess if anybody going to the game, I guess Union Avenue has a lot of restaurants, stuff like that. A lot of Peruvian restaurants, and South American restaurants. So and look for the.
You can't forget about Patsy's.
Oh yeah,
cash.
Cash. Yeah, a lot of make sure you bring cash. So
yeah.
Oh, but I mean,
and Brian, like that's another thing too. Like we've talked about this, and just an angle an approach that we take, if you will, when we talk about the club. You have a historic club returning to a historic historic stadium that was kind of down. They had a tree growing through like second base. Like they did a beautiful job restoring it, landmark status. And then that's all taking place in a city that's starting to really experience a rebirth. So I think that's kind of cool when you put all three of those elements together.
Yeah.
So of course, in New Jersey fashion, there was a couple of Sopranos episodes shot. There's a falls, which is
beautiful,
a national historic landmark there. So a couple of first season of Sopranos, they shot.
People were getting thrown over.
Yeah, thrown over the bridge. And then there's a statue of Lou Costello there. So Abbott and Costello. So he's from Paterson. So that's I guess that's what they're known for. And actually, if anybody's looking to go there and hike Garrett Mountain, oversees the city of Paterson, and also you can see New York City from there. So if you want to get out in green space,
So our goalkeeper Ari Briscoe, that is a returner. He's been with Fort Wayne FC 2 or 3 seasons already. Is from the area. I believe his family lives. His mom is in the comments of our show the other day. Follows us religiously to keep up with their son. And what all the news is around the club. Cool. They live 20 minutes from the stadium. And I think it's a bit it's exciting, but it's a bit unfortunate that I don't know that Ari's going to be there this week because he got called up to the Puerto Rican national team to put in some time. So as much as I'm sure she would have loved to have seen her son on the field, she's excited to see him playing for Puerto Rico there for sure. So
absolutely. Well, that's good news. So
yeah. So one of the other things I had, like, as I look at your roster, you guys have a lot of local talent. We've talked about that. Fort Wayne is made up very differently. We've got a lot of international talent, a lot of, American talent, but from all over the country. And so it'll be interesting to see how the community comes around those players, that we didn't grow up watching these guys in high school. We didn't grow up seeing them in our local college, except for maybe one or two. So I think it's pretty interesting that you guys have that to, those guys to rally around the local talent there. And I wonder how much of the USL will continue to be built, USL League One to be built around local talent. As you go up the pyramid, then to championship, it gets a little bit more diverse and international, and then to Premier League. So do you see the Cosmos continuing to recruit locally and sign local players, or do you think that's going to be a year to year thing that maybe they started with a lot of local talent to get the fans back, and then we'll see what happens?
I think the talent's here. But anyway, Jerry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Jimmy. So if
Yeah,
you
go ahead.
look at one thing we talk about is we get, as Cosmos fans, we get criticized for constantly talking about our history.
Yeah.
However, history is good because you learn from your mistakes. So I think if you look at both iterations of the club, it was star, 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 and you had no base. I think we're going in a completely different direction. Young talent, local talent, sprinkle in a few USL veterans, bring a guy like Winzati for the locker room who can still produce, still play, 90 minutes. And I think going forward, they'll continue this mission. But I think somewhere down the road, if success starts to come, I think we'll start seeing a splash or two, here and there.
Yeah. That'll be exciting to watch as it continues to happen.
Right.
So, yeah, man, this has been a fun conversation.
Absolutely.
Do you guys have any
Yeah.
other questions for me of Fort Wayne?
No, that's it. But if you come in New Jersey, definitely hook us up, and we'd like to come back on if you have us. I mean, I don't know.
Absolutely. Hey,
I think one thing I want to say, Brian, I think
this
has been great for us. I think what we got to do is the next time we do this, we'll have you on our show and really more interview you, because I think this time I have a bad habit of hogging up airspace. So
let's absolutely let's do it again. We'd love to share airtime again with you too. Love what you're doing out there.
I have a sneaking suspicion that we still might be winless heading into Saturday. So
well, we'll see.
And congrats to you. You came up when we had this conversation, I guess about a month ago. You talked about this Crests and Colors, and Jerry's like, we have our own show, and then but I explain the concept. But I think it's good just for both teams, just to kind of introduce themselves and also kind of create rivalries. It's not like it's anything malicious, but it's just creating a rivalry and also just player. It's good to see these players,
information sharing.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, but I think it's good for the league. So,
and Brian, the last time we did something like this, we did the Hearts of Pine. Jimmy fell in love with those guys right away. I thought I was going to lose them. This time, I think me and you might have to partner up.
I mean, we got the same hairdo, right? We got the same haircut.
I'll grow more facial hair. That is great, though. But that next time, definitely, we're going to have you on and get into a little bit more of what Fort Wayne has to offer, both on the field and off.
Absolutely. I would love that. And I will end with this. You mentioned Giuseppe Rossi. What is his role with the club?
He's the head of sport. He's basically, to Americanize the term, he's the general manager.
Gotcha.
And also he has an academy in New Jersey. Talk about developing talent. He started an academy in North Jersey close to the club, which is like in Lyndhurst.
Okay. Well, my connection there is the TST, the soccer tournament, the 7-on-7 tournament in Cary, North Carolina. My son and I went to the second version of that in their year 2. We follow FC Cincinnati. They had some of their former players in, so we were there covering the tournament, covering the team for Cincinnati Soccer Talk. They had I don't know if you guys have been there or not, but they have this whole concourse around the stadiums with different competitions going on. And they had a juggling competition. Villarreal had a juggling competition. And my son he's an ace when it comes to juggling. So he gets up there and he starts juggling, and he's in 485, I think is the number he hit. And so they put his name on the board, and there's you win a prize at the end of the day. And so we just kept circling all day long. Has anybody beat it? Has anybody beat it? And he became a celebrity where in the booth, they're calling guys over and going, "This is the kid. That's him. That's him."
Awesome.
So it was a ton of fun. At the end of the day, I think somebody eventually beat him. A kid a couple years older, 600 and something he got. But Giuseppe Rossi signed a jersey for him. There at the booth, which was awesome. So that's great connection.
Great guy. We had him.
We had him on. Awesome guy, and definitely probably
Yeah.
So,
Well, very good, guys. I'm going to cut to our outro video. And if you want to stick around, we can talk a little bit more off air here in just a moment.
Sounds good.
thanks. Yeah, thanks for having us on, Brian.